Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends of all ages. I am Derrick Day, and he is.
I am Aaron Tomlinson.
Yes, you are, and it's good to see you, man. We didn't get to do our shindig last week,
No.
but here we are, making up for lost time.
Yep.
And I think we're going to have a good show tonight. It's going to be a little heady, you know, uh, but I like a little headiness from time to time because that you know fits into our subheading, growing in real time, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I'm excited about this because I know there's some things that I know and things that I don't know and things that I expect to learn
hmm
as we go. But before we start talking about what we're learning and what we're growing, what's in the glass, man?
So I'm having a beer tonight, Modelo Chilada. Chilada
Hey,
means
your
ice cold
Molino.
beer.
What's that?
Chilada means ice cold beer.
Ah, okay.
But this is the Modelo Negra, so it's a darker
Yep.
with chili and lime.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
So pour it
For
out.
me, I'm being a little exotic tonight. I took some Crown Royal Peach,
While
some
you're talking
ginger
about that,
beer.
I'm gonna go throw this in the fridge just so it stays cool. I'll be right
Okay,
back.
some ginger beer, lime juice, and bourbon. And that's what's in the glass for me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That you have to let me know how that is.
Yeah, I'm about to tell you because I'm mixing it in real time. We're doing this whole real time thing, so
Yeah.
I'm
Ooh,
mixing it in real time.
very good. This is very good, by the way.
I'm going to have to try that. I mean, your recommendations have been spot on. Like the chocolate whiskey, the peanut butter whiskey.
Yeah,
All of those have been like they've been clutch.
yeah. I don't buy those anymore
Okay.
because just because I drink too much of it.
Well,
And
I guess you can drink too much, but um, I don't know. But you can't have too much fun. So, and
true.
drinking is fun. so, so I don't know. But anyway, we have a fascinating subject tonight for everybody that's tuned in, and thanks for everybody that's tuned in on Facebook, on YouTube, and on TikTok. Now we're live
Yep.
on TikTok, so welcome TikTokers to our little share of the universe here. We're happy to share it with you. Um, Also, before we go on, I want to do this at the top of the show and at the bottom of the show. But you want to tell people about your weekly programming and get them.
Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of probably changing that. I've been doing Sunday morning lives for well since the pandemic started, so 6 years now. Um, but I'm debating on moving to an evening time during the week. Well, I'm not debating. I just haven't picked the evening time yet. So still doing it on Sundays, but probably just for a couple more weeks, and then I'll switch to a new time.
Okay, cool. Because I want people to get tuned in to your other your other work
Yeah.
and get to know you better. And the same thing for me is I do this show on Fridays with you. I haven't actually figured out another slot that I want to do, but I've been really chomping at the bit to start doing this Kaizen way
hmm
podcast, and to get people on that have embraced the tenets of continuous improvement to better their lives and hopefully share some things with people that will help them. I also, you got to tell them about your Substack too. Ah,
Yeah. So I'm on Substack, Aaron Tomlinson. You can find me on Facebook, Substack, and YouTube right now. Um, but I'm enjoying Substack. I like that platform a lot.
yeah, I've started doing Substack too. I have one channel called Religionless Spirituality, and the other one called The Revolution Will Be Televised, and that's kind of an ode to Gil Scott Heron, who made us. Was it? Yeah, I think it was Gil Scott Heron that made the song "The Revolution will not be televised."
Ah,
And so I say the revolution will be televised because this is 2026 and everything is televised,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
and then I have my Love Minus Religion blog on Pathos, which I put out last week, and I really want to draw up some traffic for this because I think I you know this is like one of these things that's like hyperbole, and you have to kind of get yourself under control. But in a way, I kind of think this may be my blogging magnum opus.
Wow.
That it's that good.
It is good. Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting ready to, I haven't published anything but live YouTube videos in years, and I'm getting ready to start up again. And so I told you, your blog there inspired me
Okay.
because I've been like, what kind of content? Because I got to wake up my channel, right? Like
Yep.
it's been pretty much asleep for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what kind of content can I do? I need to do content that's relevant to today, but relative to what I was doing, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And so that felt like the perfect sweet spot for me, the stuff you were talking about in your blog. So I got some ideas. I got some ideas for some stuff. So hopefully within the next week or so, I've got a new studio and look, and I'm looking forward to unveiling it.
Okay. Yeah, because I want to do the same thing, and then once the Kaizen Way gets going, I'm definitely going to have you on as a guest. You'll be kind of a regular fixture there too. But what I want to do is again, Kaizen, means change, and Zen means good, and so if you put Kaizen those words together, it literally means change is good.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of the approach that I'm taking on that. With that being said, we've talked about what's in the glass. We gave our promos and all of that. So now let's dive into the subject du jour. And so we're going to talk about reality. Like, what is reality? And is reality objective, or is it subjective? Or in quantum terms, is it superposition? In other words, it is both simultaneously. And so we're gonna talk about some of those things, and we're gonna touch on the multiverse theory, because I think the whole multiverse thing has a definite relationship with what we perceive to be reality, right? And I have a hypothesis about the multiverse, and I'll share that as we get deeper into the program. But there are like different types of or meanings of reality, right? So you have like the literal meaning that everything is factual, or it's actual, it exists, right? There's substance, that it's tangible, measurable, and repeatable, right? Then you have different domains of reality. You have objective, which is observer independent reality, where the physical universe exists in the way that it exists, independent of what anybody observes. In other words, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound, right? But then you have like personal or objective reality, which that's every individual's thoughts and feelings and their individual projections, right? Or perceptions. Then finally, you have like social reality, and that deals with constructs like law, money, culture, race, and language. That's another form of reality, or a domain of reality. Then we want to talk about the philosophy and philosophical perspectives. There's a word, and we've used this word multiple times throughout the time that we've been doing the show, is ontology.
Ontology. And what's the nature of things?
What's that?
What's the nature of things?
Exactly, right? And so you have materialism, which is reality exists only of physical matter. Then you have ideas, or idealism, right? And then you have also spirituality or mysticism, right? Which deals with things on a spiritual plane. So those are some of the things that just to kind of grease the skids for what we're talking about tonight. But let me say this: I think, this is my hypothesis, not peer reviewed, not tested, but this is my hypothesis. and it's this, that that reality as we perceive it, as we call it real, it exists only to the degree that we agree on things.
Mm, interesting. Okay.
You know, in other words, a ball is a ball because we've all agreed that it's a ball.
Correct. Yeah.
You know? But when it was originally formulated in someone's mind, and then ultimately put on paper, and then given the power of words, you know, articulation to it, then it becomes it. You know, it's manufactured. It becomes a real thing. But it begins as something unseen and ends up as something seen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then when you talk about like quantum mechanics, the observer effect is that the fact that you observe a thing changes its outcome, or
Mm-hmm.
changes its result. And so the observer effect basically says that you can know the position of the thing, but not the velocity of the thing, or you can know the velocity of the thing, but not know the position of it.
Yeah.
And between those two, all you have is probability. There is no certainty. And
Mm-hmm.
then that gets back into what Heisenberg taught about the uncertainty principle. And so, you know, those are some of the rabbit holes that I want to
Okay.
explore tonight.
All right. So this is going to be fun because we haven't talked about this kind of stuff in a long time. And I have really been changing my views, or I don't know if changing my views is right, because that would imply that I've landed on something.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking deeply about these things, and we haven't talked about them. And I got some wild ideas, so this will be fun because you'll get to hear them, and everybody will get to see how you react when I put my stuff out there.
Hey, listen, man. You know, here's the thing: we don't agree on every single thing.
Right.
We don't see everything exactly the same way, but we agree on enough things that we have a common ground that we can formulate discussions on. And I think that's the beautiful thing about our relationship, is that, you know, that we're able to do that. We can agree to disagree, or we can agree passionately or disagree passionately.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's all good. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm not. Just so everybody knows, I'm not committed to any of this stuff. It's just something I've been thinking about.
Yep.
But mine is more like, you brought up the two things you brought up that I guess I would get into. Like just the question of the word reality. Like you brought up ball, right? Like, so ball, the ball is not BALL. That's something you write on paper. It's not the sound.
Right.
It communicates the idea of a ball, right?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about reality, reality is also a word. And been doing a lot of, you know, just looking at consciousness. We've talked about that, but kind of doing my own. Well, you know, I'm in transition, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
And so I've been evaluating my own experiences, taking inventory of my own life. I usually do this when my birthday comes around, and it's this summer. So, you know, I'm just starting earlier this year, but just taking inventory of where I've been, what's important to me. I've talked about this before in our show, you know, reevaluating, Kaizen, updating, right?
Yeah.
In this present moment, this is where I was, but in this present moment, what's valuable to me, what's important to me. What do I really think about life? Because I think what we think about reality is important in the sense that it can really impact how we show up in the world, right?
Yep.
So what is real? So when you're dealing with consciousness, you're dealing with desire or imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Typically in our culture, because of the consensus that our culture lives under, because of scientific materialism, those things aren't as real as the ball, right? Or the universe doing its thing. So you get into objective, subjective type reality. But what if that's all wrong? What if we have a consensus trance about the nature of reality that's actually wrong? And I've been thinking about this from the standpoint of evolution. We assume that evolution is a straight arc.
Right.
Like it's always climbing, right? But I'm not so sure that humanity's evolved. I think that perhaps we've devolved. I think we can look at ancient cultures and we can take what I would call a colonial position
Hmm.
and say, well, that was just childlike thinking. They didn't even know where the sun went at night, et cetera, and so on. And we have all this stuff, but really we're just talking about technology. And what technology does is technology empowers us. And I don't mean to, diverge from the conversation
cool.
here. I'm laying the foundation. If you think about it, our bodies are pretty limited.
Yep.
What our bodies can do are pretty limited. We can walk.
Yep.
We can. We can't even write without an extension, without a tool.
Correct.
So if you think about from an evolutionary perspective, what the body can actually do, we can walk, we can run, and we're not very good at it compared to cheetahs. And
yeah,
my dog can outrun me. My cat can run faster than me. A mouse, I can't even catch a mouse. You know what I mean? I can't even. The wasp can fly away before I can get it. Like if you just look at Darwin and species, right?
Yep.
We've got to be one of the most limited species on the planet. We can't breathe underwater. We can't run very fast. We're not very strong. Get in a fight with a baboon or a chimpanzee.
Yeah, we're limited by our environment. If it's too cold, if it's too hot, if the
100%.
altitude is too high, yeah,
100%. And so, what evolution gave to us, I guess, if you want to look at it from that perspective, and I'm even challenging evolution at this point, not from the Christian perspective of, Ken Ham, but I'm just like, maybe we don't know as much as we think we do, but we think we do because so it's like a consensus trance. But what evolution gave us was the ability to create extensions of our bodies. So what I said, you can't even write information or words. You have to have a pencil, you have to have paper or something, to carve on or to write on. You have to have a tool.
Right.
And so humanity developed all these tools. So all we've done that we call evolution and progress is developed better tools to enhance what we can't do as evolved creatures. Right. So I can get in my car and drive faster than my dog, right? I can get in an airplane and I can fly farther and faster than the birds. I can get on a boat. But all of these things are tools, and all of these things were constructed out of thought. But we in this culture dismiss thought as reality. It's not as real as the ball, or it's not as real.
I have a hypothesis about that, and I'll hit you with it when you're done.
So you see what I'm saying? And so I don't know, man. Like, look at the state of our world right now. I mean,
it's fucked up.
Statistics on depression, anxiety, PTSD. I mean, mental disorders are off the chart. We live in a abstracted reality on our phones and our computers. We're totally detached from nature. So you start looking at that stuff. Maybe we're not as advanced as we think we are.
Yeah, or let's take it a step further.
Sure.
Because one of our viewers had mentioned, he said humans haven't evolved. We wear clothes, live in houses. There's no environmental pressures, and so I will say this, that maybe technology causes us to de-evolve. Yeah. I think that smartphones, for as wonderful as they are making people dumber.
For sure.
Because we're not learning how to do research anymore. We can just Google it, and you're inundated with information. And the unfortunate part about that is that it's all not objective. It is not all peer reviewed. That there's a lot of subjectivity. There's a lot of bias. And if you're not careful, you can incorrectly parse all of that and come up with some really bad conclusions, which is kind of where we are now.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I've talked about this, and I'm going to keep talking about this because this is my jam right now.
Yep.
Manifestation.
Yep.
Manifestation. And so what I'm learning is that in order to reprogram your mind to manifest the reality that you want is that you have to reprogram your subconscious,
Hmm.
because your conscious mind knows what it wants. It makes decisions, right? The subconscious doesn't make any decisions. It simply obeys whatever the input is. And the perfect analogy for that is the thermostat in your house.
Hmm.
Your HVAC system, your heating and ventilation and air conditioning system, only knows what to do based on the input from the thermostat.
Hmm.
So the thermostat is what dictates what happens behind the scenes to make sure that the human operating in the thermostat is comfortable. So when you have a thought that is passionate enough, that is real enough in your mind, I mean, where you can smell, taste, where your senses, what you think are your senses, or the consciousness of your senses can perceive this, that your subconscious does not know whether this is reality or not.
Hmm.
And so when you do this, you tell yourself, you're saying, "Hey, I am wealthy. I am healthy. Money comes my way easily. That I make friends easily. That I present solutions to problems effortlessly." And you're going through these affirmations and these prompts that are trying to reprogram your subconscious. Your subconscious only knows whether to obey or not. And the only way it doesn't obey is if it doesn't get the right prompt. So for example, if you write 78 degrees on a index card, your HVAC system doesn't know what the fuck to do with that.
Hmm.
But if you dial it in on the thermostat, it knows exactly what to do and it delivers it. Or another thing is like the accelerator pedal on your car. It's like your car really doesn't know what to do until you tell it what to do. You
Right.
push the gas and it goes forward. You turn the wheel and it changes directions. You hit the brake pedal and it stops. And these are the things. So when we talk about reality, uh, I believe I believe that reality begins with consciousness. And it begins with thought. Thought is the extension of consciousness that brings ideas into reality,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
So, yeah. So, go ahead, man.
Well, yeah. So, but I think I've been thinking about this, right? So, if reality begins with consciousness and we are conscious entities, conscious beings, the ramifications of that are big. And for me, it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
I was sharing with somebody the other day, like, I've had so many conscious experiences where reality is actually shifted that makes no sense according to like scientific materialism or physicalism. Like I have no, Derrick, I just have no room or place for that in my life anymore at all. I think that's a consensus trance. That's a corporate hypnosis that we have bought into over the last 500 years or so of really Western society. Um, so if it's true that consciousness is base reality and everything comes out of that, then by altering our state of consciousness, which is kind of what you're talking about with the subconscious, right? If I'm reprogramming my subconscious, I'm actually altering my state of consciousness. And if consciousness is fundamental, then when we alter our own consciousness, we literally alter reality in ways that physicalism and scientific materialism not only can't account for, but would disprove entirely.
Yeah.
Materialism and physicalism and that kind of stuff. And so I think we're kind of reaching the limits of that.
Yep.
To be honest with you, I think that, even I listen to these, quantum physicists that are way, way, way above my pay grade. So I can't defend their statements against anything. But a lot of them are saying that we've come to the end of like Einstein's theory of relativity, and we've come to the end of time and space as we understand it, and the next advances will require a whole new paradigm and a whole new way of thinking, in the same way that quantum physics and Einstein, revolutionized the way that we thought about physics and reality in the 20th century. And then they'll say we have no idea what that is yet. And so I do wonder if there doesn't have to be a complete, so like we talk about deconstruction, I've been thinking about this too. We talk about deconstruction strictly within the confines of like religion, faith, Christianity, spirituality. What if also the way that our culture thinks about reality needs to be deconstructed, needs to be questioned as strongly and as thoroughly and as rigorously as we questioned religion?
I completely agree with that. Like, because you and I, we come from a background of deconstructing religion,
Right.
Deconstructing our faith, our religious practice or whatever. But you're absolutely right that if you're going to be involved in deconstruction at any level, then you have to be prepared to deconstruct everything.
Right.
And it's a holistic exercise. It's not something that you could do in a silo.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that's transformed my thinking since I got sick, a couple of years ago. One of the things that I started doing was keeping a dream journal, and I have hundreds of pages of dreams and dream interpretations by now. But I've noticed that there are certain patterns that are undeniable, that are really incredibly profound in the dreams themselves. So, for example, maybe you have a person that shows up in your dreams a lot.
Yeah.
Or you have an element, like for me, a business card kept showing up in my dreams, going way back, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I was going to be leaving my place of employment. That happened quite circumstantially.
Yeah.
Not necessarily intentionally, right?
Yep.
If I go back now and I look at, wow, every time that business card showed up, it was actually predicting the future. I just wasn't able to perceive it because I didn't have that 2020 hindsight yet. But my dreams were actually laying groundwork or preparing, and this is over months. So maybe I had 5 dreams with business cards, but there was a specific pattern when I laid it out side by side about the business card. And, thank God for modern technology. I was like, I keep dreaming about business card. I'm going to pull up every dream I've had, and so I was able to. And then as I looked at it on the timeline, it's like, wow, there's a sequence here. So I knew I was getting ready to leave my job a year before I actually did.
Yeah.
My subconscious knew, wherever dreams come from.
Yeah.
And what do you do with that? Because they're saying now, we've become such reductionists in terms of scientific materialism and physicalism and humanity that they just tell us that dreams are the junk that our mind is processing at night, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the prevalent peer-reviewed theory about dreams, and it's got to be totally wrong.
Yeah,
we're the only group that's ever thought like this, because I think we're using the wrong system and the wrong tools to arrive at the conclusions that we're arriving at, especially in regards to what it means to be a human being.
So this is where I'm going to veer off into the multiverse theory,
yeah,
right?
Sure.
Because I believe that people who come up with extraordinary ideas, extraordinary products, extraordinary services that didn't exist. I mean, I think about like Amazon Web Services, right? I mean, Microsoft has Azure now, Google has Google Cloud, but Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla of cloud computing.
Sure.
Somebody saw something, and it wasn't Jeff Bezos. Let's make that clear. Jeff Bezos had a vision to sell books and then sell products, and he did that very well. But Amazon Web Services, what I think is that somebody looked at how Amazon's business model and said, how do we get out of the business of renting servers or renting data centers to run our business? How can we do this ourselves? And that's where I think Amazon Web Services came from. But this whole thing of having this ubiquitous, omnipresent cloud that exists everywhere, and it's available to everyone all the time, and that it has this incredible redundancy and incredible resiliency, that somebody, I believe, this is my hypothesis, that
Sure.
somebody peered into another universe and saw this and brought the concept back. So when you are dreaming about business cards, I don't think that that's random. I don't think that that's even subjective. I think that you're peering into another universe and seeing a reality that exists there, and you're bringing back the constructs from that reality into this reality, and that is something that you're able to, because once it exists in your mind, and you meditate on this, you ruminate on this, and you begin to assign words to it, and you begin to assign deadlines to it, and suddenly it becomes reality. But where did it come from? And that's the big question. So when people have these grand ideas, like, for example, a lot of people don't know this. Henry Ford did not invent the automobile assembly line. That title goes to a guy named Random E. Olds, who is the founder of Oldsmobile.
Interesting.
He was the first guy to come up with a process for an assembly line. Henry Ford, what he did is he made it scale. Okay, and so how did Henry Ford, who was not the most educated fellow, how did he see this and see what Olds was doing and say, okay, here's how we make the scale, guys. Here's how we make this transform the world. This is how we're able to build a car that the average American can buy, the $700 car.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what put America on wheels. Or, you could say like Microsoft and Bill Gates, right? The computer on every desk. So the ability, the processing power to scale mainframe computers down to desktops, that existed, but there was no operating system to tell that piece of hardware what to do. And Bill Gates came up with that. I mean, it's like IBM had this idea for PC DOS, and for a long time that was the standard. And then, Bill Gates, he got a contract with a company that no longer exists. It's called Wang Computers, WANG, and Wang started developing their own PC, and to differentiate themselves from IBM, they brought in Microsoft to provide the operating system. But what I'm getting at is, how did Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer and what's Paul's I can't remember the other guy that founded Microsoft, Paul Allen. How did these guys just come up with that? Where did it come from? It's like they were able to see into something else. And so here's another theory I have, another hypothesis about multiverse, and I'm gonna say this and then I'll shut up. Is that if you ever get one of those bottles of soap bubbles, and you got the little stick and you blow into it, and it creates a whole bunch of bubbles, right? And one of the things that happens periodically is that two bubbles will come together.
Mm-hmm.
They will join. And sometimes they'll join and they'll separate again. So what happens when two universes collide like that? Is that the convergence zone where people are able to see into other universes? Is this something that happens randomly, or is this something that happens at some frequency that we're able to interpret and manipulate?
So extrapolate that out to a physics.
Oh, by the way, this drink is amazing.
Oh,
I just got to throw that out there.
If you extrapolate that out to physics, then our thoughts, our feelings, which is kind of where I began, like, are our desires real? Are our imaginations real? If somebody can peer into, let's just assume you're right, that they peered into an alternate universe or something, then the prevalent theories about something are wrong. Either the prevalent theories about time and space are wrong, or the idea that our brain produces our observation is wrong. Because if the love that I feel in my heart is just a chemical reaction that evolution gave to me so that I would want to procreate or whatever. I want to join together.
I love that procreation part, by the way.
Yeah, right. Then the only existence, from a time-space perspective, it's all just happening here. There'd be absolutely no way to peer for anybody to get an idea from an alternate universe. Not to mention, be some kind of time travel or some kind of shape, dimension, space, something that we don't understand that allows for that information to be accessed. That blows apart everything that we think about time, space, physics, consciousness, the whole thing. Like, it can't just be a cute idea. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you're saying it's a cute idea, but what I'm saying is, like, people will put out, and I'm not saying you did this. Let me do it this way. We'll hear ideas like that, but we won't think it through. Like, well, then what does that mean about reality? What does that mean about our world? If that is true, and I think you could be absolutely correct about that, then that changes so much of what we take for granted, consensus trance about what is reality.
But that goes back to your point a few minutes ago, that if you're going to deconstruct everything, because now if what I say has any validity, if it holds any water, then that means there is an entire reformulation that has to happen about what our interpretation of reality is.
Well, what was it? I wish I could remember the specifics, but they were working on the quantum computer at Google or whatever, their quantum computer project, and they gave it some really complex math problem or something, and they solved it in like 15 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And the creators, or the people that are working with the quantum computers, were saying the only way it could have arrived at that answer was if it got answered.
Interdimensional travel.
Exactly.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah. So I'm saying that, like, for our viewers, like, what you're saying isn't far-fetched. It's not off base. Like, it's rooted in stuff that you've studied. It's not rooted in just, the latest new age idea or whatever.
No, this is not woo-woo stuff.
Exactly.
There is some actual science behind it. And that there was a guy who got fired from Google because he did in a press conference, he had announced that Google's AI had become sentient. That in other words, it was dedicated to his own self-preservation. And so, like, if it thought that you were going to turn it off, then it would migrate itself to some other host so that it would persist.
Yeah.
And all of these things is like, so this comes back to the original question: what is reality?
Mm-hmm.
What is reality? Is reality something that exists? In other words, does the universe exist outside of our observation? Or does our observation dictate what the universe looks like? And if that's the case, if our interpretation dictates what it looks like, then that goes back to my original premise, or this bolsters my hypothesis that the only reason why things are what they are, because we had this discussion before. This is appearing into the dimension of Derrick and Aaron's
Right.
private discussions. But it's
Right.
like, if you look at a television, this television, you look at this and you say, okay, that's a television. It's a flat screen. It's 54 inches, right? 65 inches, whatever, right? And you know that that's a television. But why is it a television? Is it a television because this is what we manufactured, and we took elemental components and assembled them into different materials, and these materials into a circuit board and a display and a power source? And is that what happened, or does this exist because all of us agree that that's what a television looks like?
Mhm.
And this is one of these things that we have to deconstruct, because whew, it's it's like, why are things what they are? And here's another thing too, while we're talking about whys. Why is it that you have an Aaron and I don't?
Why is it what? Say that again.
Why is it that you have something that I don't? Or why do you have an understanding that I don't?
Right.
Because we're working with the same raw material. We're working with the same observer dictated substance. We're all dealing with the same probability, but there's something that you see that I don't,
Mhm.
or something that you have that I don't.
Mhm.
And all of this, when you start talking about reality, right? This, and again, this is my hypothesis, is that I think that when people see something, okay, I'm going to get real nerdy here. You guys, bear with me, please. There was an issue of the Fantastic Four comics from the early 70s. And it was the Fantastic Four. They were fighting against Galactus. And Galactus is this being that is able to consume entire worlds.
Mhm.
And so they were trying to figure out how to defeat Galactus. And so there was a group of these beings called the Watchers. And the Watchers existed outside of space and time. And they just had a collection of things. And so Reed Richards, the head of the Fantastic Four, goes into the realm of the Watchers, and he's asking them, what do I need to defeat Galactus? And the Watchers say, we can't tell you that, because there are a myriad of possibilities. But you can come in, you're free to pick among everything that we have and use this. And it just so happened that Reed Richards made the right decision and brought something from a higher conscious realm into the physical realm that was able to defeat this being.
Mhm.
What am I saying? Is that, like, when I look at let me use Elon Musk as an example, and I promise you I'm going somewhere with this. Elon Musk is not the multi-genius that everybody thinks he is. He didn't start Tesla, he
Right.
co-opted it.
Right.
He didn't start PayPal, he co-opted it. He didn't start SpaceX, he co-opted it. Why did he co-opt it? Because he was able to see something that other people could not.
Mhm.
He was able to go into a realm that other people couldn't or wouldn't, and pull something back that benefited him. Now, this is the thing. So the Reed Richards syndrome here is that Reed Richards was not looking for something for himself to profit. He was looking for something that represented something to the greater good. And I think that that's the problem with the obscenely wealthy right now, is that they're not, they get, for whatever reason, the Elon Musk, the Jeff Bezos, the Oprah Winfrey's, they're able to peer into other dimensions, but they're not doing it for the greater good. They're doing it for their own ego gratification
Mm-hmm.
and their own self edification.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were able to harness this power, and peer into other universes and draw things out that we know would help humanity, and then we begin to actually express this, manifest this in such a way that it does actually change humanity.
So, what if the two streams I want to go on? I'm gonna tell a story first. So, and I'm gonna keep it vague on purpose because I just don't like to share other people's stories if I haven't asked permission to share their stories, right? Especially if they share it in conversation. So, I know a guy who is a he has a doctorate. He's published in his circles. I think it would be safe to say world renowned as a thought leader, right?
Yeah.
Brilliant guy, taught at a very, very prestigious university, and from a country in Africa originally. Completely self-educated, meaning
Autodidactic.
Yeah, very autodidactic. Didn't graduate, from anything that would resemble high school or whatever, but held a dream in his heart to be an academic one day, to be respected as an intellectual one day, et cetera, and so on, right?
Yep.
And came from a tribe in Africa that I'm going to say still believed, because I'm coming from our own consensus trance in our colonialized world, where the medicine people still went out and talked to the plants to find out what the plants were saying were the medicine that the person needed. So the plants were living and speaking to them, and that's how they would know what to use to treat illness. No, prescription.
Yeah.
But would dream about this and had the opportunity to come to Canada as a young man. Well, anyway, long story short, ended up getting into a university without paperwork, performed well in the university, and then it advanced and ended up where they ended up, right?
Yep.
Because they were holding that thing in their heart so strongly, I think. So here's my point. We tend to think, and by we, I just mean our culture, and this is the Descartes, this is the Cartesian split. We think that our consciousness, our thoughts, our emotions, our desires, our imaginations are subjective and limited. And we think the outside material world is objective and does what it does. So you brought it up earlier, if a tree falls in the forest, there's no one around, does it make a sound?
Yep.
The conventional answer would be absolutely it makes a sound, because it's not dependent upon a subjective observer in order for whether or not it generates a sound. It just does what it does. What if we flip that? And I'm just saying this out of curiosity.
Go ahead.
What if we flip that and say, no, actually what's real is perception? That all reality is perception.
Yeah.
And we are born into cultures that are having conversations about reality before we ever showed up. And those conversations mold our perceptions so that we all see reality the same way in those cultures. So, for example, in our modern scientifically driven culture, the things that we believe, the conversation that was happening before we showed up, if I were to say, there are people groups that go out and talk to the plants and believe the plants speak back to them, and give them medicine, we say, that's a fairy tale. That's, those poor souls, they don't know better. They don't know like us. They don't know about confirmation bias. They don't know about, all this different stuff, right?
Yeah.
By the same token, though, if I was born in it wouldn't even have to be going back, but if I was born in Ireland or Scotland, even today, there are so many people in Ireland that grew up in the forest and stuff that still believe in the Fae folk. That can tell you that they've seen the Fae folk and that kind of thing. But if I was born into that culture with no part of our scientific world shaping the conversation, and someone were to come in from the West and say, do you believe in the Fae folk? Do you believe in the fairies? I'd be like, what are you talking about? Of course I believe in the fairies. They're as real as the sun and the moon and the trees, right?
Yeah.
So is it that we just dismiss those things because we're part of a consensus trance where our perceptions have been shaped?
So let me stop you for just a second, because you mentioned consensus trance a couple of times.
Yeah.
I want you to unpack that.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if the opposite is true, if our perceptions are shaped by our beliefs, let's just say it that way. In other words, if what we believe is what we experience as reality, and those perceptions are shaped not individually, not me doing my own individual work on my subconscious or meditation or imagination or whatever, but it's actually shaped, it's given to me by the culture around me in the same way my language is given to me. I didn't get to choose to speak English. Maybe I wanted to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And there are languages that don't use definite articles. They don't really think in nouns. They think more in verbs. So they perceive the world as more action oriented, as more process oriented, and can't even think in the conceptual terms that we think of in English because they don't have definite articles.
They're not thing oriented.
They're not thing oriented, exactly.
Yeah.
So their perception of the world is absolutely shaped by the language of the culture in which they were born. And so that's what I'm saying. So like English is a consensus trance then.
Okay, got you.
So if I say, a dog is D-O-G and it's the D-Og sound, right?
Yeah.
And we all agree on that. That's consensus trance.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, because, when we look at anything, what makes a house a house? What makes a car a car?
Mm-hmm.
What makes a television, and all of these things. So this all plays into your consensus trance hypothesis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, without question. I mean, look at political parties, right?
Yeah.
You can, especially where we're at today, like, you're going to believe what the group tells you to believe in some cases. For example, and I don't want to get too political, but like,
no, go there.
When the president says over and over and over and over again, I don't care about regular Americans and how they're suffering. Too bad for them. Just Air Force One, what was it just recently? Well, if they have to watch it on TV, that's just life. If they can't afford the nice things that we can afford, then that's just life, and I don't care what the gas prices are doing. And yet the people that are committed to supporting that person and that ideology, it's like he didn't even say that. Like he could say it and then they would say that's AI, that's fake news, or they just don't even hear it, right?
Or that it was taken out of context. That's not what he actually said.
Right. So you can be totally gaslit. And they've done studies like this, right? Like they did a study where they got a group of people together and they had another person in another room, and the plan was to shock them and to keep elevating the shock, and it was all staged. They weren't really shocking this person, but they got the group to the point where because of the social dynamics of the way we think and act, to where they had most of the people in the room, just average people, giving lethal shock doses to this supposed victim.
Yeah.
Because, and this was to demonstrate like authoritarian trances. The guys in the white coats, that were saying, we're in charge of this. It's okay. You need to keep doing it. It's keep part of the experiment. Yeah, but isn't this fatal? Yeah, but it's going to be okay. And they would give them fatal level shocks.
Yeah.
And nobody in the experiment stood up and said, screw you in your experiment. I'm not doing it.
There's an episode of The Twilight Zone that deals with that. It's like you push this button and it gives you $1 million, but somebody dies every time you push the button. And it's like people are all good about pushing the button until that button eliminates someone that they love. And that's the thing. It's like we are conditioned to want something at the expense of someone else. It's like if it happens to affect the poor single mother, too bad. If it affects the family that's trying to make groceries, too bad. If it's the person that's trying to fill up their tank so they can go to work every week, too bad. And that's kind of where we are. And so I say this to say that one of the things that I think that we, the rank and file, the M1A1 citizens, right, that we need to tap into reality, or what we perceive to be reality, to rebuff, reject, and refute what others above us are trying to do. Because if we just accept, what the oligarchy says, then we're fucked. Because they don't have any empathy or sympathy for us, right? But if we say, if you and I say, and those who are watching and listening say, enough is enough, I'm not going to accept this, that if there is a policy decision, if there is something that is going to impact everyone, let it impact everyone in the most positive way. And in doing that, I think that we collectively reshape reality.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I would agree. But I guess, like, from the way I'm looking at this, if consciousness is fundamental and perception is reality, at least on the level of what we agree about, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Then maybe all things are possible to him that believes. Maybe we are limited because of our beliefs.
Yep.
And I'm not just talking about, I believe that I'm only worth $100,000 a year, so I'm only ever going to make $100,000 a year. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about maybe we could time travel. Maybe we could relocate from one, like Scotty beam me up. Maybe we could do some of those, walk on water, whatever.
Yeah.
But the consensus trances are so strong that we automatically agree that, you can't defy gravity. But yet there are mystics, documented throughout history that levitated, like legitimately levitated.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? So my thought is they reached a state of consciousness where they broke out of that consensus reality trance that it's not possible to fly unless you have wings. Yeah. Now, that sounds really crazy. I know to a lot of people.
But you know what? In India, I'm just going to pick one place. In India, there are documented cases of people who levitated, people who flew without wings, and all of this stuff. And this is part of their historical record. And when you go and look at the Bhagavad Gita and other religious texts in the Hindu lexicon, you see that this is kind of a recurring theme. So the point is that, to your point, is that, okay, what is reality? And if someone, so Jesus walks on water, right? And then, you know, like, and I don't even think that's the greatest miracle. I think that the greatest miracle that Jesus did was when he showed up to the disciples in the locked room. The door was locked from the outside,
Yeah, right,
which meant the disciples could not let him in.
right.
And Jesus shows up, you know, and what I think is that there is a quantum lesson there that given the right understanding, that we are able to make our matter decompose to the degree that it transcends
Hmm.
another matter, i.e., a wall or a door,
Yeah.
so that you're able to go in. And you know, I always think about, you know, Star Trek is one of my favorite sources for muses,
Yeah.
and the whole concept of the transporter is
Right.
that people are deconstructed to their atomic level and reconstructed on the other side. But there was somebody that had it was in a Reddit, and this guy was he was a physicist, and he basically said that if for transporting matter energetically as Star Trek does, that every time a person is transported, they die and are reborn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, that's some deep stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, when I think about reality, and I ask myself a really salient question,
Hmm.
and that is, what is, because if we look at this from a quantum standpoint, the observer effect dictates outcome, which means that the mere fact that, so like I have a Sprite bottle here
Hmm.
that's left on the table, and I look at this Sprite bottle, and this thing is made of particles and waves that when I look at them, they change, but the bottle remains. Why is that? Why is that? Is it? I mean, the simple answer is because we agree on that as a Sprite bottle.
Hmm.
But let's just say that I agree and everyone else agrees. Aaron, you don't.
Hmm.
You say that is a blue.
Hmm.
Does that change the composition of it? Does that change the outcome of it? Does that change the reality of it?
You want me to answer?
Yes, I absolutely do.
So I think here's what I think. I think that the only way that that works is if I actually, what'd you say, balloon?
Yeah.
If I actually perceive and think I'm seeing a balloon, because I think like one of the things that we did with faith in the church, or that people do with affirmations, is we gaslight ourselves. We want to believe something because we want it to be
Stop
true.
right there. We gaslight ourselves.
Right.
But keep going because I want you to come back to that.
We want to believe something because we want it to be true, and we think if I believe it, I can make it true. When in reality, we don't believe it at all.
Mm.
So if I sit here and I am riddled with shame over something that I did, and I sit there and say, I love, no, let me give you a better one. Let me give you a better one. If I were to look in the mirror with my shirt off and say, I'm one of the 10 most handsome men in the world, Or even just
I
say,
would agree with that. If
or
you
just
said that, I would totally agree with you.
thank you. Or just say, I love my body. I love my body. I love my body. I love my body. And I really don't, which we know is true for most people because even supermodels look at themselves and don't love their bodies. I don't think I've ever worked, especially with and this is a growing trend I'm seeing among young men too, but I don't think I've ever worked with a female client that didn't have body issues, no matter how attractive they were.
Yeah.
Right. So when I talk about gaslighting, it's like, if deep down I really am disgusted with what I see when I look in the mirror, and I sit there and say, I'm one of the most handsome people in the world. I'm one of the most beautiful people, or not even that. It doesn't even have to be compared to anybody else. I love my body. I love my body. But I look at my body and I think, oh my God, you're fat. You're just disgusting. You know what I mean? I'm in a sense gaslighting myself because I am trying to force a reality. I'm trying to force a belief that I don't really believe.
Right.
And so I think there has to be a lot more. I think changing our beliefs about reality is a lot harder work than what we've been told in the law of attraction communities, for example, or even the psychotherapeutic communities or the positive affirmation crowd. You see what I'm saying?
Preach.
So I have a 55-year, let's just say that Sprite bottle could be anything if we could just agree on it to be something. But, we have a combined 115 years or whatever of seeing that as a Sprite bottle. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to be able to just say it's a balloon and all of a sudden it's a balloon.
Right.
Because I don't really believe it's a balloon. I believe it's a Sprite bottle. And I can't not believe it's a Sprite bottle. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't mean, but see, here's what I'm saying though, Derrick, just to drive this home. That doesn't mean it's a Sprite bottle.
Right.
Objectively.
Right.
That just means that's how strong that, what I'm calling consensus transfer.
How strongly you believe that it is.
Yeah. And how hard it is to change those deeply embedded beliefs.
Yep. And that's the thing. So going back to what we were saying about deconstructing everything, is when you deconstruct things, you're saying I'm questioning the foundation upon which I believe.
Right.
And now I'm considering the possibility that this that I see is actually not what I've seen.
Yeah.
And really that I think is the key to deconstruction, because like I keep coming back to this, and this is a familiar example to you that may not be to everyone else, but I always think of Jeff Turner.
Yeah.
Jeff went from being a Christian evangelical megachurch pastor,
Yeah.
to being a total atheist,
Yeah.
to being a Christian that is no longer obsessed with proselytation. That he believes that his faith is enough.
Yeah.
And he's deconstructed to that point. And I think that when we go, and I've said this, I said this in my book, Deconstructing Religion too, that when you reach the fork in the road, you're either going to go down the path that I'm fortifying my faith, that what I see cannot be denied, that what I've experienced cannot be denied, and therefore I must stand on my faith. Or you look at this whole thing and you say, you know something, this is bullshit. And what do I do to move to the next level? And that's what that's what I think is the intellectually honest way of deconstructing. But again, it's not it's not fully deconstructing what we assume to be the reality of it. In other words, we're taking a segment, a silo of this, and we're saying I'm deconstructing this, and therefore I'm better.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of a dangerous precedent, because if you say I'm deconstructing along this silo, are you really deconstructing? Or are you engaging in replacement theology?
Yeah. I think I'm at the point of really approaching things pragmatically, like what's working, what's not working. People misunderstand. I'll speak as a clinician. I think people misunderstand mental disorders. It's not a disorder if it's not a problem for you.
Right. Yeah.
You can be the most anxious person in the world, but if you function and you're not miserable, it's technically not a disorder.
So let me throw something out there, because Maya always gets after me about when I say things like this. But there was a time when I was a functioning cocaine addict.
Mm-hmm.
I was using probably a half an ounce of cocaine a day,
Mm-hmm.
but I was getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this to advocate cocaine use,
Mm-hmm.
but this is something that worked. And so when you look at deconstruction, or look at how we evaluate deconstruction, it's like, okay, is this what I'm doing working for me?
Yeah, I mean, I'll use my own mother as an example. Like, her faith worked for her, and you know, it was in no way toxic. And what I mean by that was, like, it wasn't judgmental. It wasn't condemning other people. Like, she really believed the teachings of Jesus. Love your neighbor as yourself,
Yeah,
honesty, integrity, and it got her through some really, really difficult times in her life, and enriched her life and enriched the lives of the people that knew her. We got thousands, and I mean thousands, of messages, people showing up, letters, notes. Your mom, people would, that I never knew. Like, when I was going through this tough time, your mom would come over and she would just sit with me while I cried,
yeah,
and she didn't tell anybody. Well, does it make sense for her to deconstruct from Christianity then? No, it doesn't make any sense for her to she's gone on,
yeah,
but it makes no sense whatsoever, because it worked for her
yeah.
in a way that was not.
And that's a point about deconstruction. Let me throw this out here, because like I see Joe Mashuda out here, and and I don't think that and Joe, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that you've completely deconstructed. I think that you're trying to find a better interpretation of what you believe, and that's okay. I don't think that everybody has to deconstruct totally from whatever their religious paradigm is. I do, however, think that that everybody needs to go through a deconstruction process. That we need to understand why we believe what we believe, and how do we make what we believe work for us.
Yeah.
Now that I believe, but as far as like, if someone has deconstructed past the canonical teachings of Jesus, I don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just say that because I don't think deconstruction is helpful or healthy for everybody, and we, as a culture, we tend to argue, well, what's true, what's not true, thesis, antithesis
Mm-hmm.
type of thinking. But at the end of the day, like, what do we really know and who really cares if it's not impacting your life? Like I remember one of the best things, Rick Godwin. I don't know if you ever
Yeah,
heard Rick Godwin,
I
but
have.
I've only heard him a couple times. But one message I heard, that really stuck with me, and it was really early on. He was talking about like all these end time charts, the left behind stuff.
Yeah,
You know how they used to have, I forgot about this, but you know how they used to have, you'd unfold these charts and here's the rapture and then here's the
yeah, like from the Dakes Bible,
3D and then here's the,
dispensationals.
yeah, that whole thing. And he says, he said this, and I'd never heard anybody cuss in a message before. He says, I don't give one lily billy damn if it's not helping me in my marriage or helping me to have joy, you know. Um, and so that kind of pragmatic approach has always sort of stayed with me.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, how much can we really know? It's all going to be based on what we know anyway. Like, a shit ton more about cars, more about quantum physics, more about computers, more about marketing, more about business, you know more about a lot of stuff than I do, right? So, and there's things that I know more about than you do. And so we can draw from each other when it's helpful.
Yeah.
To draw from each other, right? But I'm not going to like stop driving my car because I don't even know how to change the oil, you know? You know what I mean? So I think we just place too much emphasis on reality in the sense of my thesis is right because it's the most consistent and the most well thought out. I'm miserable as hell in it. It doesn't work for me. My life's falling apart, but God damn it, I'm right about this. That just doesn't make any sense to me anymore. So
Yeah,
I'm approaching things from a more pragmatic standpoint, maybe than I ever have.
and my thing is that I look at things from the standpoint of, does this work for me?
Yeah.
Does this work for me? And that's the first question that I ask. But the second question that I ask is this working for someone else?
Right.
And if it is not if it's working for me and it's not working for someone else, then that means that my information has to be incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the full answer. And what I think is that not only should our answers work for ourselves, but they should be more ubiquitous. So they should be more universal.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at, does this work from a deconstruction standpoint, I'm not asking for myself. I don't really care about me. What I do care about is, does this scale out to others?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Can this be realized
Yep.
by others?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, then I'll sit down on my hypothesis and I'll leave it alone.
I would nuance that a little bit from my own perspective. Because I've been thinking about this too. Actually, just yesterday, I was thinking about it.
Go for it, man.
Trying to think of what I want to share. I think it's okay if it works for me and it doesn't, bear out with other people. I think where I want to be careful is when something becomes weaponized.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, and I'm sure from your perspective as well, much of Christianity today, and especially charismatic Christianity, what you and I came out of, is a weaponized instrument of the political right, of MAGA. Yeah. If I'm taking away the rights of people to express themselves as trans, for example,
yeah,
because my faith doesn't permit that, and then I weaponize that against the trans community to shame them or justify violence against them or intolerance against them,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's the line. So if it's working for me and it doesn't work for you, okay, I'm not going to throw it away. It's still working for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take what's working for me and weaponize it, even if it's to make money off of it, right? Like you have to try this method, this program, because if you don't try this program, you're not going to get the same results as those other programs that are out there. So
Yeah.
send me $99.97 and I'll teach you the program. That could be another form of weaponizing it, right? So I would nuance it for myself, not so much because I did that in Christianity. Like it has to work for everybody because there's that other orientation. And
Yeah.
I realized that I gave too much to people, to be honest, and didn't keep enough for myself.
No, that
Does that make sense?
No, brother, that is a phenomenon. That when you look at people like you and I, who are grace preachers, and we gave and gave and gave and gave and gave,
Yeah.
and we were never replenished.
Yep.
That's a real phenomenon.
It is.
And what was sad is that there are a whole bunch of people out here who dwell in that grace paradigm, who never seek affirmation, who never seek, confirmation, and so they're pouring out and they're pouring out, and this is something that I learned from preaching, was that you can get to a point where you're no longer you can't pour out anymore. You're empty. You've been wrung dry.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you have to find a place of replenishment,
Yep.
or you are going to die ministerially.
Yep. I think that's what happened to me, to be honest. As I've thought about it, I think that happened to me in 2016, August 2016.
You and me both.
Yeah.
You and me both. I mean, that it was like I was pouring out, pouring out, and I'm talking to people and I'm saying, hey, this, that, and the other, and meanwhile, there's no one who's pouring into me.
Yeah.
So I was empty.
Yep. Yeah, died ministerial. I like ministerially. I like that. I think that's exactly what happened to me. Yeah.
I was thinking about this thing like you and I have been connected for a long time.
Yeah.
But Aaron Abke stepped in and said, hey, you guys need to really connect.
Yeah.
You guys need to connect. And so Aaron said some things that brought this relationship to come to pass. And this is the other thing that I say about that, is that when it comes to manifestation, I believe that there are people who speak into your, and you have to exercise some serious discretion about this, boys and girls. That you have to trust that there are people who can speak in your life and tell you the connections that you need to make. And I think that Aaron Abke, he was one of those people that said, hey, Aaron, you and Derrick, you guys need to connect.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be able to trust those who speak into your life. And so to circle this back to reality, is like there are people who are able to speak into your life, and they can because they're tied into a reality that resonates in your life.
Yeah. 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 So I don't know how we did with the multiverse and
we touched on the multiverse briefly, and I think that we touched on it as much as we needed to in the context of this discussion.
Yeah. I think where I would close this is like, this is another thing that I've been thinking about a lot, we tend to outsource things that are really ours to do.
Mm,
Um,
that's good.
and I think I wrote a Substack article about how what religion did was it actually outsourced relationship with God.
Yeah.
So, originally you had to go through the priests and the sacraments and the church, and then you had to go through,
Yeah.
until ultimately it's outsourced to the Bible. So now it's outsourced to people, at least in the Catholic traditions, Orthodox traditions, you're dealing with people you can see. You're outsourcing to the priest or the Pope or whatever. I'm not saying that you should do that, but at least they're alive.
Yeah.
In the Protestant fundamentalist evangelical, we've outsourced to people that we don't even know if they existed.
Right. And that's a big thing, because we look at the historicity of Jesus and we say, Louis, hush. Did Jesus exist historically? And then we look at people like Origen, and we look at Augustine, and we look at all of the church fathers, and we say, okay, did they really exist? Polycarp, did they really exist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
That's okay. We're over 50, so we could claim CRS.
I know what I was going to say. We can end up outsourcing our perceptions of reality.
Yeah.
And that can be problematic for us. And so my epistemology anymore right now, Derrick, at least right now, how do I know what I know? Because of what I've experienced. And that can include what I've read.
Yeah.
That can include trusting experts in fields where they have expertise, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, there's experts I never even heard of, right?
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, in my world, they don't exist. I never heard of them. I never heard of the field that they're experts in. So it has no bearing whatsoever on my life, right? So I think where it becomes problematic is when we outsource away from our own experience, our own intuition, our own wisdom, things that are really ours to do.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think that we have a responsibility to embrace the mystical.
Yeah.
And that if we're not doing that, if we're not prepared to do that, then I think that nullifies any future arguments that we have regarding reality.
Yeah.
That's where I land.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well, I guess we're done, huh?
I guess so.
So appreciate everybody for did Joe, I don't know if Joe stayed on, but I just wondered if he responded to you, made a comment.
Yep.
To him. But anyway, thanks everybody for taking your time with us again. Most precious resource that you have.
Yep.
And so we really appreciate you spending your time with us.
Yep. We absolutely appreciate you being here, and your contribution to our conversation is significantly appreciated.
Yep. All right, Derrick, I love you, man.
Hey, I love you too, man.
Good rest of your night.
Yeah, we're going to be in LA tomorrow,
Right
and I'm excited about that. And I love the fact that me and baby we get to get out and see the world and share that with everyone. But I think that when we get out and see the world and experience things through the eyes and experience of others, I think that makes us better people.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
you guys have an amazing time in LA.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll eat some great food and
we're gonna walk hand in hand down Venice Beach, and we're gonna eat some good food, and I will give you a full report.
Yeah, definitely Yeah, I've been to Venice Beach many times. I really like that.
Yeah.
I really like that area. All right, brother. Love you.
All right. Love you too, man. Y'all be good.